Welcome back to my channel. I'm Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit Barbecue, and on today's video, I'm going to be smoking up a Tex-Mex brisket. Yep, you heard that right. Tex-Mex brisket. Stay tuned. All right, let's get started on this Tex-Mex brisket. First off, always protect your hands. I like to wear a cut glove under my nitrile gloves just to protect my hands from getting cut with a knife. Then you can put your nitrile gloves on. These happen to be from Clean Space. Check them out at the link below. All right, now we are ready. I'm gonna take this brisket out of the package. This is probably a 12 to 13 pound brisket. Now, it does not matter the grade of brisket for the Tex-Mex brisket. You can actually use a select brisket if you wanted to, because marbling really doesn't play a factor on this type of cook. Man, this brisket's got some really nice marbling. First off, I'm gonna be removing this decal fat. I'm not too worried about any of the silver skin. Some of the heavier fat pockets I might take off, but again, I'm not too worried about the silver skin. Just gonna turn this over. Now this brisket has a really aggressive mohawk. I'm just gonna take that down and trim off some of this extra fat. Not sure if you guys can see that, but this brisket is pretty gnarly. It's got some pretty deep holes right here. Even on this side right here, look at this deep hole, probably a 1-inch hole. So I'm just gonna clean this up by removing some of this fat. I like to round the point off. Again, you want your brisket as aerodynamic as possible. All right, I think we got enough fat trimmed off. Next step is just to remove these thin parts of the flat right here. Just round that off. So I like to take my knife, round it off. Real simple. Now, if you don't make sausage, you can save all these little scraps for some carne guisada, maybe some beef stew. All right, so that brisket looks good right there. Now it's time to season this up. Now, I'm not gonna use any binder on this brisket. Now, as far as salt, I want very little salt, okay? I'm applying some kosher salt, but I'm only applying a small amount. And I'll explain that later on in this cook. Next, I'm applying some garlic powder. Again, this is a Tex-Mex brisket. SPG works for us. Pat that in just a bit. Next, we're applying a hefty amount of 16 mesh black pepper. Again, it is not a Texas brisket unless it's got a ton of 16 mesh black pepper. All right, let's flip the brisket. Again, very little salt. Just a slight sprinkle, black pepper, and some garlic powder. Don't forget your edges. All right, so I've got the brisket all seasoned up. Now this is going to be an overnight brisket, but for now, I'm gonna pop this in my fridge for a few hours, and I'll see you guys outside. All right, so it's 10:30 p.m. and I've got my Lone Star Grill's 20 by 42 pellet smoker running at 225 degrees. Let's go ahead and load up this brisket. All right, let's load up this brisket. I do have the point facing towards the fire pot, which is over here on the right side. So I've got my hopper filled with the Smokin Pecan pellets. 40 pounds fit inside of this hopper. And if you guys have never used Smokin Pecan, I highly recommend it. These pellets are made from 100% pecan shell, no wood, no fillers, no nothing. So not only do these pellets create a ton of smoke, but the flavor and the color that it's gonna leave on this brisket is gonna be absolutely amazing. You guys will see that. So I'm gonna be plugging in a probe to this brisket. On the right side of my Lone Star Grills, you have a port right here. Just gonna lift that up. Now I like to install the probe right in the middle, right where the point and the flat meet. Make sure you stay somewhat in the middle. just like that. I'm gonna go ahead and close the door. So I'm gonna be monitoring my pit temperature along with my probe temperature with my Fireboard app that I've downloaded onto my phone, so I have nothing to worry about. So at this point, I'm gonna shut off the lights, get some sleep, and we'll see you guys tomorrow morning.
All right, so it's the very next morning, and our brisket has been smoking for 9 hours. Let's take a look at it and see what it looks like. Wow, look at this brisket. Looks like an absolute beauty. Look at that bark development on this brisket. Right now, the internal temperature on the brisket is 180.5 degrees, but nice and soft bark. That fat is rendered nicely. All right, so my initial thoughts after 9 hours is this brisket looks absolutely amazing. Super nice color. This is that nice color that you get from the Smokin' Pecan pellets. Really good bark development. So far, I am really impressed with this Lone Star Grills. So I'm going to be smoking this brisket 100% unwrapped. Even though I'm not going to be slicing it, I still want it nice and tender just to get that maximum smoky flavor on the brisket. So at this point, I'm going to slide the grate back in, close the door so we don't lose a ton of heat. So I've been using the Fireboard app to monitor the pit temperature along with the brisket temperature. And at the bottom of the app, it says Analyze, and it's giving me an approximate time of 11 a.m., which means this brisket should be ready in about 4 hours. I'll see you then. All right, so exactly 13 hours later, this brisket is ready. It's hit a good internal temperature, right at 200 degrees. This bark formation is really impressive. And look at this, probing like butter. Oh yeah, this is ready. Now this is the Tex part of our cook. Now it's time to do the Mex part. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the brisket, and I'll see you guys inside. All right, so take a look at this amazing color on this brisket. It has a really dark mahogany color, and that bark is absolutely crazy. And I gotta tell you, it's that smoker and those Smokin' Pecan pellets. Now, we're not gonna be slicing this brisket. On the Mex part of this brisket, we've actually gotta cook it some more so that we can shred the brisket, but I can't help myself. I'm just gonna get a small piece. Now, you never wanna slice a brisket right out of the smoker. You wanna let it rest a minimum of 2 hours, but this isn't gonna hurt anybody. I'm just gonna grab a small piece of this brisket and taste it. Super smoke ring on this thing. I don't know if you guys can see the juiciness, but it is juicy. I'm gonna give this a taste. Oh my God. That is so freaking tasty. All right, that's enough. I'm gonna move this aside. Gosh, that brisket is good. And you know what? I didn't add a ton of salt, and it really doesn't need that much salt because I can really taste the beef along with the smoky flavor from that smoker. That is absolutely delicious. So I'm gonna go ahead and place the brisket inside of this pan. All right, so for the Mex part of this Tex-Mex brisket cook involves a sauce that is really popular right here in El Paso. And it's not surprising because the company is based out of El Paso. So here's the sauce that I'm gonna marinate the brisket in. This is Claude's brisket marinating sauce. And again, this is really popular right here in El Paso, Texas. You can find it at any meat market, any supermarket right here in El Paso. So if it's not available in your area, check online. You can find stores that carry their products. So this Mexican style brisket is really popular in El Paso in quinceañeras and weddings. In fact, I call this a quinceañera brisket, but we're adding that smoke factor, which is again, the Tex part of the Tex-Mex brisket cook. All right, so I'm gonna take this entire 16-ounce bottle of Claude's brisket marinating sauce and pour it over the top of the brisket. Now you wanna make sure you shake the bottle enough like I just did and get all the seasonings out of the bottle. Now earlier in the cook, I said not to add a ton of salt, okay, because this sauce has plenty of salt. You will not need any additional salt. Now I'm cheating a little bit. I have a really nice onion slicer. If you don't have one, you just gotta slice it by hand. All right, so you wanna separate the onions. Just toss them on top of the brisket. All right, so now I'm simply gonna cover up this pan with some aluminum foil. All right, so I'm gonna toss this brisket back inside my smoker at 350 degrees for 3 hours or until this brisket shreds really easy. Now, at this point, you can toss this in your oven if you wanted to at 350 degrees and you're gonna be perfectly fine. We've already got a ton of smoke on this brisket. At this point, we're just gonna cook this brisket until it shreds. All right, so after 3 hours at 350 degrees and a 1 hour rest, this brisket is ready. Check this out. I am excited to show you guys this. Look at this. These onions reduced down. This is going to be absolutely delicious. Now I'm going to transfer this brisket into a different pan. And this is going to be super tender, okay? Look at that. I'm going to grab some of these onions and throw them in here. I'm going to set the rest of the onions aside, and I might use those after we taste this. All right, so here's our brisket. One thing that I like to do is just turn the brisket around so you have the flat side up. And look at that beautiful color. So the reason I turn the brisket upside down is because you have the fat cap on that side. You can't really see the grains of the brisket, but obviously with the flat side up, you can definitely see the grains. Just separate them a little bit like that. Look at that. So I'm gonna grab 2 forks. This is really simple. And just shred the brisket, okay? It's going to shred apart fairly easy. Look at that. That is exactly what we're after right there. A Tex-Mex brisket. This is going to be so good. Real simple to shred. Look at this. This is exactly what you get when you cook it for an additional 3 hours at 350 degrees. Not only is it soaking up that delicious Claude's marinade, but it makes it really tender and makes it real easy to shred. Now this brisket is not dry, it is super juicy. Hopefully you guys can see that, still nice and warm. Oh yeah. You don't want to chop this up, it's not the same. I think shredded this way is the absolute best way to enjoy this Tex-Mex brisket. And the aroma that is coming off of this brisket is amazing. Now if you see any large chunks of fat, you definitely want to remove those, but I don't think we're going to have that problem. This thing rendered down pretty good. All right, so here's our Tex-Mex brisket. Now earlier I mentioned to set the additional onions and the marinade aside. What you want to do, look at this. Oh my goodness. This looks and smells absolutely amazing. What you want to do is grab just a little of this brisket, give it a taste, and check the salt level. Absolutely perfect. Nice and juicy. Good smoky flavor. That marinade right there is absolutely delicious. Now traditionally, this type of brisket is enjoyed with some potato salad, maybe some beans and some nachos, but I'm going to show you guys my favorite way to enjoy this Tex-Mex brisket. So I'm just going to put some tostadas on a plate. I've got some queso that I made right here. Nice and spicy queso. Pour that over your tostadas. Now what you want to do is grab some of your Tex-Mex brisket and just put it on top of your nachos like this. Oh baby. That's what I'm talking about right there. Look at that. Let's give this a taste. All right, guys and gals, let's give this Tex-Mex brisket a try and see how we did. I gotta tell you, I've already tasted this brisket and it's absolutely amazing, but these nachos are gonna put it over the top for sure. Here we go, look at that. Man, this Tex-Mex brisket is so good. Nice and smoky flavor, and that marinade, oh my goodness. Guys, I gotta tell you, this Tex-Mex brisket is absolutely delicious, and I believe this is the first video of this kind on YouTube as far as the Tex being a smoked brisket and then mixing it in with the Mex using that Claude's brisket marinade. This is so darn delicious, and if you've never tried the Claude's marinade, you've got to give it a shot. Now, if after tasting the brisket you feel it needs a little bit more salt, grab those onions that we set aside with that marinade, grab some of those, throw it in the shredded meat, mix it up and give that a taste, and I guarantee you it's going to be spot on. I hope you guys enjoyed this Tex-Mex brisket video.
If this is your first time to my channel, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Until next time, Joe with Smokin Joe's Pit BBQ. See ya. I gotta get me some more of these nachos.